Welcome to the Eagle Eye Podcast, the number one show to bring you all things Club America in English, from tactical analysis
Pelota para la banda izquierda.
to player updates. We've got you covered on all the latest news on Las Águilas. Now, let's start the show. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Eagle Eye Podcast. Today, we're going to be breaking down everything that happened in the first leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And then, of course, we'll preview the second leg at away in Hidalgo against Pachuca in what should be probably the biggest challenge for America this season so far. So to join me to talk all things Champions Cup and Club America, it is none other than New York's favorite resident, Christian Rosendo, and returning to the podcast for the CONCACAF Champions Cup Special Edition, it is none other than Mr. Brian himself. Gentlemen, how are we doing this fine evening?
Do you always say my last name in the intro?
Yeah, always.
Do you? I think this is the first time I've actually noticed it.
Been doing this for like 4 years, and this is the first time you notice this.
Yeah? Huh. I need to pay attention more. I hope everyone's doing well. I myself am not, because it seems like this team this season just wants to make me look like an idiot in front of everyone. But we'll get into that a little bit later, but I hope everyone else is doing fine today.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because as the game was unfolding for America and as we were crumbling at the Azteca, I was just thinking to myself, well, Christian was definitely not on mark with everything that we said on the podcast. But hey,
The first
it is what it
minutes,
is.
So you were like, wow, he had a point.
Yeah. Until then, everything just went downhill.
Until then, yeah, everything went kind of downhill. Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll try to vindicate ourselves today and hopefully get things right for the second leg. And a guy that hasn't been on the podcast in a minute, but I think will be the reason why America wins, because he is on this one. It is none other than Brian. Brian, how are you feeling coming into this one?
A little uncertain, a little bit, just because I felt like when we talk about the first leg, like America looked really good coming out, and then for them to start to stumble a little bit and not really go through with the game plan, I was like, is this more of the Conca Champions hiccups that they keep showing, or like I don't know. There's a little uncertainty, but I still think they can pull through.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about that uncertainty, because it feels like, again, there's this looming figure over us that Pachuca is our eternal kind of like kryptonite, right? Our Achilles heel in knockout stages. And I mentioned it to you guys in the podcast last week too, Christian, that, it's hopefully that this team continues to do exactly what they did last season, which was breaking these trends of America, not being able to win in certain places or get results against certain teams in different venues. And so hopefully we do get to continue that stretch of, I guess, form in a sense. But let's talk about that first half, Christian, because it looked like America was doing things right. And it wasn't until we actually conceded the goal that America just felt deflated. But the first opening minutes, we looked good. We looked promising. We looked very aggressive on the ball. And things were happening for us.
Yep. No, and it's I think the game plan that we all kind of wanted, right? Take the game to them, control the tempo of the match, make them know that we are the protagonist in this series, and we did exactly that, right? We got the early goal. We were in the position where we wanted to be, and then after the goal, it just seemed, for me at least, we were just never in it ever again.
Do you agree with that, Brian? Do you think that the team completely just deflates after conceding?
Yeah, and then another thing I noticed, like we kind of said in the chat, Pachuca started doing this pressure where they would push two men on the midfielder, and I don't know if whatever happened with Jonah in that game, he was a step behind, and then like there was suffocation for either him, Fidalgo, and then pushing the ball to the wing, that there was no ideas left because they kept pushing and pressuring and putting two men on whoever had the ball. And America didn't really have an answer for that. Now, Pachuca wasn't crazy scary on the other end, but it was still like wow, what happened to that first, start to this game? Like, where's the idea to get past this and to work through it? And there just was nothing really.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up because we did mention that in that group chat. And looking back at that game, it's nothing new that America hasn't faced against, right? It's not like this has been the first time we faced against a team that kind of presses us in that sense. It's just other times we were very quick on our feet, those that 1-2 passes, and like you mentioned, right? Fidalgo and Jonah usually are a step ahead. In this instance, it looked like they were kind of trailing, that they just were one step behind the play in that sense. And so it didn't seem like America was capable of kind of getting themselves out of the situations. And
Yeah.
yeah, I felt like there was a lack of creativity from everyone, and not just the wingers. I felt like Diego Valdez didn't have an answer, right? And I was trying to look at him to be like, look, you're our number 10. You are the most creative player. When you are on fire, this team just revolves around you. But when you are lights out, this team completely has no answer going forward. And I think that's the frustrating thing, Christian.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, I noticed that I think Pachuca really tried to force our right hand side, knowing that I guess if you look at Israel Reyes, every time he tried to push up, there was no creativity from him whatsoever. It was either you advance the ball a little bit and then it goes back, right? It goes back to Malagon or it goes back to Cáceres. And then the ball right back to him. He has a little bit open space. It feels like he kind of like hesitates a little bit, stops the play, stops momentum, and then brings it right back, right? It just seems like we also didn't take many risks in this game. And like you said, though, we needed our 10 to kind of be the one to kind of start initiating those risks, and it seemed like every time he had an opportunity, he would just bad pass here, or he would let the pass go, and then Quinones would take a bad touch, or Henry Martin would be double marked, or Sendejas would be double marked. It just wasn't the overall good game for the midfield part of the team, and I think it's something that we have to correct going into tomorrow's match.
Absolutely. And I think you need, like you mentioned, those players, your Jonas and your Fidalgos, a little bit more, right? And not just in the creative side of things, but also in the finishing
Relieving
part of it.
pressure.
Because yeah,
Right.
that too. But I mean, I feel like, okay, you have a very compact Pachuca. You're not able to kind of take them on, and you're not able to kind of break down that defensive line. So you have some space. You're gonna have to take shots from outside the box. And Jonah had maybe 1 or 2 shots. They weren't outrageously that far away. But in a game like this, Brian, I think you would agree. Fidalgo doesn't give you the most confidence that he's gonna be the one to take like a 30-yard screamer and put it on frame.
No, not from distance. He'll shoot that to Guatemala.
That or it's gonna be a very soft shot to the goalkeeper.
Yeah, and that's the one thing though. There's a few times he will get it where you think he's going to shoot it one time, that first touch, and he kind of second guesses it. So
Mhm.
maybe he can fix that for this game. If he sees that one timer, take a rip.
Absolutely.
You want
Chris,
to make them uneasy. You want to make them as uneasy as possible too, especially when you're looking
Right.
to relieve pressure all over the place. So let it go. Let the shots go. In my opinion.
I like it. I like it. Chris saying, Pachuca game plan felt like it. Hold on, I don't even know what I'm reading over here. Pachuca game plan felt like it was have 2 players on one when they pressed and let Idrisi do his thing.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Which I agree to that sense. But also, Christian, I feel like I don't know if this is the right way to phrase it, but it feels like a lot of teams have figured out how to play against America, and that is be physical, very, very physical. You saw how badly it kind of disrupted our game plan against Pumas, and
Mhm.
Pachuca kind of took little notes of that and did that, right? Not to the same extent. I don't think they were as physical or as harsh as Pumas were, but they did definitely get physical in moments of the match, and where I think, I don't know if it played a little bit on the player's head, just coming back from the Clásico Capitalino, and they seen, okay, we're getting hit again. Is this going to be kind of a rinse and repeat story? I don't know. Is that really truly the way to play against this America side?
I mean, it sure seems like you're right, but nonetheless, though, I think the whole thing was to kind of just disrupt our momentum. Because, like I said, I don't think we had any serious momentum in this entire game, in any part of the match. It seems like whenever we were starting to feel like, okay, maybe this is where we could start building on something, it immediately got shut down, right? And it just seems like we couldn't cope with that constant high press that they were doing. And I mean, credits to them, credits to their coach, credits to their game plan. It worked. I think we all saw that most of our players were pretty flustered or just had no idea on how to kind of break it. And it's you combine that with like a little tackle here, a little tackle there. You disrupt your best player. You know, you're not letting Diego Valdez breathe. You're not letting Fidalgo breathe, and everything just seems starts to collapse, right? Um, like I said, though, we have to try to find a way to kind of get around that, or you have to do something differently because obviously it just didn't work in the first leg in our own house, and now we got to go do it over there. It seems like a tall task, but I mean it's something that we have to do if we want to reach that final.
Yeah, and kind of like, Brian, you mentioned it, and the scary part about it all was that Pachuca seemed very much relaxed throughout the entirety of the 90 minutes. Like they were comfortable with this result, knowing that they had that away leg to kind of fall back on. And I think, in all honesty, I think the game went exactly Pachuca's way.
1,000%.
In all honesty,
Yeah.
and so that's a frustrating thing because I would imagine both of you would agree that America failed in the first leg, and we would look at this first leg as a disappointment, right? Because you didn't get a result at all that you can kind of work with. Because, you didn't get the win, you didn't get the clean sheet. Now you're going against the run of play with that away goal situation, so you have to open up space in away territory. So I'm not saying it's a mountain to climb for America, Brian, but the task didn't get any easier after the first 90 minutes.
Yeah, and when you're looking, now you're on the road, and that pressure disrupted you when you were at home. That's the only part going into this where I'm uncertain. Can they figure the way out of this and breathe, get some breathability so that they can make those chances? Even like I said, even if Jonah or Fidalgo needs to take a shot, so what? Can you make that breathability and that link up? Obviously, the guys up front should be the main focus, but being on that road, I mean, it's been a little bit of a kryptonite in years past, But that being said, to get a result, I think that catapults your confidence moving forward. So there's that incentive too. To if you get a result like this, because this team it's not an easy team. I mean, ask Philly; they got blown apart, against Pachuca. So to get to the next step in a win like that, or however you need, get through, I think that'd be a good confidence boost for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, Christian would disagree a little bit, right? Christian, you were painting us the story of how Pachuca was being overrated and how we shouldn't even have to worry about them.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yes. Well, I'm trying to figure out that question myself too. Like I said though, we have all the ingredients to beat this team, right? Now, like you said though, the task doesn't become any easier. We're gonna have to go in there, but I think that also can play in our favor, knowing that we have no chance in this game whatsoever. Not a single minute has to go by where the players have to feel relaxed, right? I feel like they're always gonna be on their toes. They're always gonna be focused. And that's something that we tend to see with this team in previous games and in previous ties, where we just become this like overconfident team. We start being a little relaxed, start letting the other team kind of get into their groove, into their game plan, and it kind of catches us off guard, right? So in this 90 minutes that rest, it's give it all or go home. So I think that might play into our favor. And I think it's the first time all season where we face kind of this adversity. So it's going to be interesting to see how we kind of respond to that also.
Yeah. And I mean, the only thing that I can say to kind of bring a little bit of ease to all Americanistas is this season has been specifically the season of America on the road, right? We've had the most games on the road this season. I think, 10 in Liga MX, and we still finished top of the table. We have had our best results in CONCACAF Champions Cup in the away leg, right? When we're not at home, minus that Real Esteli game. That was the hiccup. But other than that, you've seen good performances, a lot of goals from America in the Champions Cup when they're not at home. So I guess there is something to kind of grasp at and say, okay, all hope is not lost. We can still go out there and do what we've done consistently this season, and that is win on the
Yes.
road.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, something positive to kind
Well,
of.
I think I even said that, right? Remember we played the Revolution, and I was like, I don't even think the game at home is that big of a deal if the way they play as good as they do on the road. And look what happened. That was one of their best games.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But is there anything else you guys want to add on in regards to the first leg?
I think maybe only the bright thing is that I think Sendejas is probably the only one that kind of attempted anything in this match. I think he was the only one out of the offensive line that actually tried to do something. And I just really hope he continues that performance because I know we were, especially me, hard on him the whole first half of the season, right? And to see this kind of turnaround and him becoming or one of the most important players on the team, it speaks volumes on him. It speaks volumes on how he kind of turned the season around, and he is very important heading into tomorrow.
Absolutely, because what he can do on the right hand side, and what's even more impressive, Christian, is the fact that he's had to do it a little bit on his own. Because Israel Reyes
Yes.
is not that Kevin Alvarez-esque right back
Right.
that can go up there and kind of relieve a little bit of the pressure, make those overlapping runs the way that Kevin does. And so Sendejas has had to carry that right hand side a little bit more, and not just that, he's had to hustle back and defend like crazy as well. So yeah, super, super impressed with Sendejas, especially because we criticized him so much, like you mentioned at the beginning. And then Javairo comes in, and if it feels like he just feels like, okay, my starting position is up for grabs. I better cement it again. So
Hmm.
yeah, kudos for Sendejas. So nothing more on your end, Brian?
Well, I was just going to talk about Reyes as the right back is like he did have a lot of possession and movement in the attacking part of the field, and I just feel like he's kind of like stagnant there. Would you guys not agree with me on that one?
1,000%.
Yeah, and I think Christian mentioned it at the beginning too. It's just he doesn't fill you with that utmost confidence going forward that he's going to be as deadly as like I mentioned,
Right.
Kevin.
Yeah. So that was the one thing about that game where that might be another change to keep an eye on. But
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes back to everything else we were saying about opening things up and just not succumbing to that extra pressure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that is the first leg. Like I mentioned, I think if you had to wrap it up in one single word, it would be disappointing because, like we
Hmm.
mentioned, this was an America side that was supposed to be firing on all cylinders. That was supposed to give us the best performance, and that was supposed to kind of quote unquote kill the game off because we have that level of talent and because we've showcased it throughout this competition that we're capable of kind of blowing away the competition and defining games in the first leg, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the case. America didn't show up. I mean, the moment you saw Diego Valdez, like 3 consecutive first touches were poor. It kind of spelled what the night was going to be looking like. And so, yeah, I guess disappointment all around. But now the real question is this America side as good as we paint them to be? And if they are, then they're going to get the job done tomorrow at Hidalgo. So
Hmm.
let's see how that
Exactly.
looks. So before we jump into the second leg, gentlemen, let's talk briefly a little bit about some club news and highlights here, because the league decided to just randomly today tweet out and award us the best team of the year, calendar year. So the best team of the season. So America, quote unquote, won the supporter shields in a sense. If any of you guys know about
Yeah.
the MLS and their standings. Um, kind of your guys' reactions on that? Like, America ended up washing away the competition. I think Monterrey was behind us, but they had 62 points or 64, something like that. And America was like 10 points above them. And so, we won that. It's not an actual trophy, it's more like an award. And with that award comes a spot into the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which we didn't need because we were already champions.
I
And
think I think it's a buy. that we get, that we don't have to play the first round. I think
Oh,
that's what
yeah.
we get, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So, all right. And then a nice whop of cash, $1 million. See what we're capable of doing with that. Doesn't seem like a lot in today's day and age, though.
No, not
I'm
really.
being
No.
honest. You know?
Whatever. It's some sort of recognition, I guess.
I mean, and Chris was talking about a lot of this in the group chat, Christian, and he was like, well, this was supposed to happen. And then I think as he was mentioning, a lot of America Twitter was like, bugging and was like, well, they said that they were going to do something for the best team that won, that, accumulated the most points throughout the whole calendar year for the Apertura and the Clausura. And, we finally get the recognition, but it just feels like kind of whatever's. I mean, me personally speaking, I mean, I'm curious to hear what you guys have opinions wise regarding this. But for me, feels a little pointless.
Yeah, I guess you can say it. I mean, it's whatever to me. I mean, like we knew that we were the best team in the calendar year. I mean, this just, I guess, solidifies it. A piece of recognition, I guess, from the league. Um, what I will touch on is that when this whole concept of supporter shield for Liga MX was gonna come out, the article did state, I had to find it. I'll share it with in the group chat later. It did say that the economic prize was gonna be substantial for the winner of that, and to find out that that substantial equals only $1 million, it doesn't seem like a big thing, and it wouldn't really like make or break anyone, right? Like it's not something that teams will like, oh my god, it's the last game of the season, like it's neck and neck, like we have to go all out to get this. It's seems like, okay, if we get it, we don't. If we don't, if we do, then whatever, right? So I guess if they were trying to build it up to be something important, they should kind of maybe take a step back and reevaluate the prizes that the winner gets, except especially the economic prize, because like I think someone just said it, $1 million can't buy you nothing nowadays, right?
Yeah, Chris
So
said
that's
a
my
million
take.
doesn't even
It's
buy you one
whatever
Henry
at this
leg.
point. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Well,
yeah,
time to
yeah,
put in the
yeah.
stock market. You know what I mean? Go back to prop that stock.
Buy more of our
market.
own stock.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Look, the Estadio Azteca just got himself a little bit more money for its
Yeah.
renewal.
Towards
Exactly.
renovation.
I don't know, Brian, your take on this whole stuff.
I just think it has to do. I think it's different per club. There's a lot of clubs that would want that million to do something with it. Everyone's got bills differently, right?
Yeah.
So for America, I mean that's a bigger name team. It's not the biggest prize ever. Like I said, this thing is a little random. It's like a recognition. Our job is. We've always said it. Our job is ahead of us. It's the Conca Champions League, and then after that, you got to focus on Liga. So it's just like we were talking about. It's like, yeah, it's cool and it'll be useful, but that's not the end goal. It's not that's not what you're fighting for at the end of the day. So it's nice to see, but our job's not finished.
Absolutely. I think it's a nice pat in the back. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah. But like you mentioned, right, there's bigger fish to fry. And two, like you mentioned, Christian, no team is looking at that and thinking to themselves, wow, you know what, next year, that's going to be us. We're going to fight for that. We want that award and we want that, we want that $1 million. So, yeah, it was just, I guess, really interesting. Dylan really wants it to be a trophy, right? He just wants it to be acknowledged as a trophy. So we are gonna
maybe a plaque or something.
we'll a plaque or something. I don't know, but we are gonna deem it from this point on. This trophy that Dylan wants it to be, this new supporter shield, is gonna be called the Dylan Lombardi Trophy. Okay, so we'll call it that. So Dylan will be happy in regards to this trophy that America has acquired through the full calendar year. But yeah, any other news and updates? The only thing I have on my list is that Nestor Araujo won't be available, which I think is a good thing for America.
Like I said, it's whatever.
Yeah. That's the only thing I have club news wise.
It's been a
Yeah,
slow week.
it's been a slow week, but depending on how tomorrow's result goes, it's gonna be
Oh,
going crazy,
I know.
regardless of it. So I'm sure that conversations will be going crazy. Um. All right. Let's move on then into the second leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, gentlemen. Do or die for America. Would you guys say that this is the biggest game of America season so far, or at least the biggest challenge that America has faced so far within 2024?
I would say
I would
so.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, I would agree with that.
Because I would say that this game definitely makes or breaks our season. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Right? There's so much emphasis on Champions Cup coming into this, and how we kind of all just said, you know what, it's not necessarily saying that we're not going to want to compete in both competitions, but if one had to take priority over the other, Champions Cup definitely is at the top of that list, right? For so many reasons, and you know, the ticket to the Club World Cup, right? The last ticket to the big inaugural 2025 Club World Cup as well. The economics that come with winning this competition, everything really, truly, and then obviously the fact that we haven't won this competition in such a long time, it means that there's so much riding on this game, right? And the pressure is detrimental. It always is whenever you're talking about America, but this one feels just that much more now that it's Pachuca, it's away, it's Hidalgo. It feels like, you know, we're back in that stage of we're cursed whenever we're playing these guys in away legs. Like, how would you guys talk Americanistas off the ledge and say, you know what, this game is not as bad as we expect it to be? Like, there is more than just hope. Like, we can go into this game and win it, and maybe even win it comfortably, right? Is that out of the realm of possibility for this America side?
No, I think it's just finding the way to kind of get there. The only thing that I guess I can tell people is we've played them once. We know their game plan now, and now it's just up to us to kind of analyze it and try to break it down, right? I mean, like I said before, we have the coaching staff, we have the players capable of doing it. And whatever they did, it was nothing out of this world, right? It's just basic fundamentals that I guess we just weren't used to facing throughout the whole season. And when it finally hit us, it seems like, we were taking a bit, we're taking back a bit. I'm sorry. But now that we've witnessed it, we've lived it, we've played 90 minutes of it. I think we do have the right capabilities to kind of get this done and move on to that final.
Okay, I like the response. I love it. Brian, we didn't necessarily talk about it on the podcast earlier, but we did mention about it off camera, right? This America side looked gassed at certain points of the match towards the later end. It seems like everyone was just kind of running on fumes. Andre Jardine made sure to rest everyone against Puebla, meaning that we should have, in theory, the most rested squad possible coming into this game on Tuesday. That should fill people with a little bit more hope and ambition that, okay, this America side is going to look like a much more different side than we saw last week.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the game on the weekend, that was a rotated squad. They got the victory. And obviously, I would say Javiro looked really good. So you get an added boost of confidence. And then, I mean, just like I want to go back to one point you said, like, how would you talk Americanistas off the ledge? It's like, well, we're reigning champions. So, you know, you got to go out there and prove your point, right? So the talent's there. Yes, they got a little bit stifled a little bit by that pressure. Readjust. You're now rested, like we were saying. You got the W on the, you got to win, and some players have more confidence now. So I think it's ready to go. This is it. This is what you built this team for and this season for. Forget the noise outside of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to kind of just lock in, focus, and say, you know what, this is what we're playing for. And the mentality's there. If you listen to how the players speak about this season, how they speak about each other, about the team, about the objectives, it's clear that the mindset is there, right? And just coming off as champions, we said, the biggest worry for this America side was Campeonitis, and they haven't necessarily done that. I mean, look, top of the league again, doing things good in CONCACAF Champions Cup. Like, the mentality is there, and I expect it to be 100% there throughout the game. And I think these players know that, okay, if we can get past this team, then it doesn't matter who's on that other side. Like, they will feel like, okay, that is ours. Like, we just need to make sure that we can get through this one, get some rest, and then we can completely focus and go back into a final and just completely dominate the way we know how to. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Gonna be completely interesting to see how America goes out and tries to dominate the game, or at least try to manage the game wisely. Because
Yeah.
Kevin Perez said, away goals count in this, right? So we just got to keep it close. Even a 1-1 would force extra time, right? It's nothing out of the realm of impossible for America. So
And also scoring first just kind of eliminates whatever they did over there with their away goal, right?
absolutely.
So
Mhm.
also you kind of get that extra confidence, extra boost. Okay, now we eliminated theirs. Now it's go time. Just
Absolutely.
build off of that.
So, all right, Christian, time to vindicate yourself here. What are we going with starting 11 wisely?
I think you got to rinse and repeat. I think this is the best lineup you can possibly put out. I know there was a lot of chatter, even from myself, kind of maybe switching up either of the left back and right back. But like I said, I think this is the team that Haridina has been going with all season. It seems like the team that's been giving us the most results. So we'll stick with the same 11 that we did in the first leg.
Yeah, and just to kind of repeat that, it's going to be Malagon in goal. Israel Reyes on the right. On the left, Chicote Calderon. Center back partnership, Cáceres and Igor Lichnowsky. Center mids are going to be Jonathan Fidalgo. In the cam spot, Diego Valdez. On the left, Julian Quiñones. On the right, Sendejas. And up top, Henry Martin. Chris posed kind of a question here in regards to that left back position, right? That they had a debate about this on Fútbol Picante as to, whether or not Chava Reyes might be more influential going forward. Maybe, he brings a little bit more than what Chicote brings. And someone even said Fuentes might be a better option. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think Chicote Calderon is an issue going forward for America, and hasn't been an issue kind of defensively speaking either. But I think he understands the runs pretty well. I think it's just sometimes it's a little difficult to carry that side when Julian Quiñones is drifting very, very towards the middle. And sometimes he needs a little bit of help, right? Which is why you see Fidalgo drift to the left sometimes as well. So
Right.
I don't necessarily think Chicote is a problem for America, at least in that left back spot, and I don't think he would have much issues in this game.
No,
Right.
actually, if you're talking about like attributes in characteristics, dropping back, I trust him more. I mean, you look
Yeah.
at several games this year where he was cutting out plays, and like I said, like Chava played as the left wing last game, so he's kind of all over the place. I think he's kind of like a man without without a true position. So I'm okay with Chicote as the left back, especially in the starting lineup. So yeah, that's just my take on it. Especially I trust him more cutting plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, then looks like we have our defined starting 11, and I agree. I think that is our strongest starting 11. Kevin hasn't looked like he's been firing on all cylinders. Even in this Puebla game, he didn't look that exciting. Israel Reyes still looks like he's gonna be a little bit more capable.
It's just now a
But you know
matter
that
of
you,
containing Idrisi, because I think Idrisi had his way in the first leg.
yeah, he did. He definitely did. Which is why I think you're gonna see a much more deeper Sendejas, which is not necessarily the worst thing in the world either. But that's when you need Diego Valdez to step up a little bit more, right? And so we'll see how that looks like on the field, but on paper, like I said, it's manageable, it's doable, right? Because everything flows through him, right? Everything goes through Idrisi. If you can cut off that avenue, then Pachuca may not necessarily have all the answers that they're looking for.
Right.
So, all right. tactically speaking, Brian, what does America need to do differently so we're not suffocated by this pressing Pachuca's going to do, which most likely is what I'm assuming they're going to try to do as well, right? They're going to say, it worked so well, why not rinse and repeat?
Yeah, so I mean, they're going to have that link up play much better. In not to pick on Jonah, but he was very just kind of um, overwhelmed towards the end of that half. So we need him a little bit more on his toes and just getting rid of the ball faster. And then as we're pushing forward, have the idea of that link up and the overlapping run. And like I said, even just going back to just if you've got that one-time shot, you had to take it. I mean, there's no hesitation, in this game. So as long as they move faster and they're not as, you know, like I said, stifled when the pressure hit. I mean, that'll open up play, and like Valdez can do his thing and open up the game for us. And then usually in situations like that, that's when like Henry shines, right? He makes that weird run where like he gets the ball, he'll find a player, tap it in, and then it's like we need a little bit more of that. So that's kind of like the strategy for this team for me entering the second leg.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a couple players that are going to have to play a really good game, and it's going to be a game that they're going to do without the ball at their feet, right? They're going to have to get dirty, and they're going to have to do a little bit more than the usual. Like you mentioned, Henry, right? He's going to be double marked again, Christian, and you feel like he's going to have to find his way around that, and maybe,
Right.
you know, maybe that's not the worst case scenario, because if you have two guys on you, you make a good run, or you're able to pull both of them away. You open a small pocket of space for Quiñones or Sendejas to run into, and that Diego Valdez can play the ball to. Then boom,
Right.
perfect, job done, right? And so
Yeah, no, definitely.
it's
Also,
gonna
I
be
do want to see
important.
in this game. Also, I'm sorry to cut you off there, but also I don't know if you guys noticed this also, but I feel like Quinones was a little bit too central in the first leg. I felt
Hmm.
like he wasn't really kind of making or creating plays on the left hand side per se. So it kind of just made the center backs' jobs a little bit easier when going forward. There's not really much room to kind of move in the middle when it's so congested, right? So I guess if maybe Quinones can kind of find that space, like you said, an off-ball run, for Valdez or Fidalgo to kind of just ping him, I think that also should open up a couple lanes here and there. Like you said, though, I think we just got to be quicker with the movement, make them be on their toes instead of just kind of playing into what they want.
And let's not get it twisted. Like, this is a game that America has to go look for. Like, from the get go, we cannot afford to play anything else but aggressive. And I know that might sound a little bit scary because Pachuca could utilize some space and this and that, but I think that's when we talk about, right, the importance of what these players are going to do off the ball, right? Jonathan Dos Santos, we have said time and time again, has been the anchor of this America side, starting to just cut off spaces in the midfield. Cáceres, very quick. While clumsy at times, I will agree, he scares me, but he's very quick and is great at last-ditch tackling. And Lichnowsky, very physical, knows how to read space and can get kind of in between the player and the ball when needed. And so that triangle right there is going to have such an important game when America is pressing, when America is going forward, when America is pushing Pachuca's lines back, because you're going to need them to push forward with you. But at the same time, you're going to have to be like, hey, we need you on your toes, because if we get nicked on a counter, it's up to you to kind of get it going. And of course, the main thing, don't give any set pieces away. Because, again, our Achilles heel throughout the season, and it worries me. Every time we concede a corner, or every time we get a foul, it's my heart drops. I just don't understand why we cannot clear anything. So it's worrisome. I mean, other than that, I mean, I don't really see any other avenue that we could get exploited by. Maybe that right hand side with Israel Reyes, but then that's what I mentioned, right? It's the importance of Sendejas dropping, right, and Jonah cutting off space before the threat gets there.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's gonna be interesting. It should be a fun game. Should be a good game. What more would you add to this, Christian?
I don't know if it would be a fun game, honestly. I'm gonna be on at the
I guess
maybe I
for a
might
neutral
see
perspective, it would be
the
fun.
whole yeah, for a neutral it's gonna be amazing, but I guess for a fan it might get a little cardiac out there. Like I said, we just gotta stick to what we know, right? We obviously know we're the better team. I believe they would know that we're the better team. It's just about implementing our game plan, just adjusting to what happened in the first leg. We've all said it throughout the night. We have the talent to do it. It's just about going out there and executing it, right? Because whatever stands between us and the final is this team, right? So just got to go out there and play our game, and everything should come to fruition.
All right. Who is your player to kind of keep an eye on, Brian? Who's going to be the player that needs to have a well-rounded game for America to come out on top?
I'm gonna have to say Valdez.
Okay, it's a really good pick.
The killer instinct will. I mean, that's just gonna rub off on everybody else, especially if plays are being made and causing harm to Pachuca. I mean, that's just gonna just make that engine for that team. So that's my guy. I mean, for this game for sure.
And especially when you talk about taking shots from outside the box, we know Diego Valdez can be lethal, and he has very good placement of the ball. So, again, he tried it a couple of times in that first leg, but I think there was better avenues than to take those long shots. But this one, if Pachuca's really pressed back, then have a go.
Mm-hmm.
Christian, who is your player to watch?
I was gonna say Valdez also, but I guess if you want me to say someone else, I was looking at Quinones too. I think Quinones has had a stretch of bad games recently. And if he wants to kind of redeem himself or kind of get back into that groove ahead of Liguilla, this is literally the perfect game to do that, right? You have a stellar performance, 10 out of 10. You get your team in the final, and it's just that much more confidence heading into the Liguilla.
Absolutely. Brian took your pick. You took my pick. So now I'm going to have to come up with my own pick. But it's going to be a man that I've been mentioning throughout the podcast, and that is Jonathan Dos Santos. Man just turned 34 years old, but he has to look like prime 28-year-old Jonathan Dos Santos out there tomorrow night. And which is doable. I think he's very smart. He's very capable, and he understands his position very well, right? I know a lot of people may think, well, you know what, this might be a game where maybe he's outdone by the youth of Pachuca. But I don't necessarily think that could be the case for him. I think that he can come out on top and, demonstrate that he's still a very good player, right? And a player that has been rumored to potentially get a contract extension, Christian. So, there's something to play for here, in not just because it's a semifinal, but I mean, in the personal aspect for himself is, demonstrate that, hey, I am still a viable player. I am still as good, and I'm continuing to have the best calendar year of my entire season as a professional soccer player. So, yeah, I'm looking at Jonah to kind of, like I mentioned, cut out not just cut out the lanes and the passes and the spaces for Pachuca, but when we start moving forward, he is literally at the center of it, because whenever we take a goal kick, it usually starts with Malagon playing it to him. He then kind of takes space and kind of plays out the back, but he's the catalyst there, right? And then it keeps going like that, right? Feeds it to the engine of the team, which is Fidalgo and Valdez, and then America starts progressing from there. But I think that he needs to be smart with his 1-2 passes, and yeah, just don't get beat on those 50-50 balls like you were, So for me, it's Jonathan Dos Santos. So some very good picks here. All great picks. Let's just face it, everyone's gonna have to have their great game. But if we need to highlight a couple of players, definitely would have to be that. Dylan, agreeing with you, Diego Valdez. Chris also agreeing with you, Diego Valdez needs to be the key. So let's see. Well, the only thing to add is the details of this game, right? It's gonna be at tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard, 9 Eastern. So not too late for you, Christian.
Not too late. It was 9, 10, 11, 12. I was still gonna watch anyway. It didn't really matter.
Hey, yeah, and then you and AJ as well. AJ will be keeping you guys up to date, so make sure you guys follow us on Twitter. He's gonna have all the live goals, reactions, and everything going on in the world of Las Águilas del América throughout that game. And that game is gonna be on TUDN. So get you guys yourselves ready. And yeah, should be an interesting game, and where hopefully America can come out on top, and we can come back next week and kind of have a sigh of relief, and then talk finals and Ligia. So that would be absolutely fun. But all right, gentlemen, let's talk predictions. All right, here we go. Christian, I'm gonna throw it to you first. I threw the other question to Brian.
So
What is your prediction?
last week when I said that we were gonna walk over them, right, kind of be easy game. I was talking about this game, not the first leg. I was talking about the return leg. So it's gonna be 2-1 America win tomorrow.
Oof. Okay. All right, Brian.
Well, usually when I make predictions, they're fairly timid and conservative. I pick a lot of draws and stuff. But I'm going to change my tune on this. I'm going to say 3-1 America.
Oh my God.
boy.
I mean, I
That's
love
my
it.
boy.
I absolutely love it. But it's coming out of left field for Brian, you know? But I'm loving it. I'm loving it. That's the attitude and the spirit that we need to have coming into the game tomorrow. So 3-1 for America. I would absolutely love it. And yeah, all right. Let's read a couple of his predictions on the chat. Chris saying that he's going 3-1 America. Chris. Dylan going 2-1 as well. So Chris agreeing with Brian. Dylan agreeing with Christian.
That's my boy.
Whew. Man, tomorrow, I've been thinking about it all day, to be honest. At work, on my way home from work, on my way to work. And I was just thinking every scenario possible and just kind of trying to weigh the good and the bads.
We're putting the mortgage on America?
No, I would not say to do that. But but I think we're going 1-1 and America can win it in penalties.
Damn.
That's a lot of nerves.
Too much nerves, actually. Too much
nerves.
That's
not good for the health. It's not good for the health, not good for the heart.
No.
No.
I don't know. Man, I've never been one to be
that's
wrong.
Like one of my picks. Usually that's something I would say.
Yeah, I know. We got our roles reversed today, Brian.
Yeah, today, yeah.
Absolutely.
Ivan's like 4-0, a clean sheet.
Dude, I want to. I wish, because it would continue the trend that America has been doing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, minus the Real Estelí game, but kind of once, the knockout stages truly began to matter. So, 3-0 away at Chivas. What was it? 5-0? Yeah, 5-0 away at New England. Like, high scoring games, clean sheets. We'll see. Absolutely, we'll see. Dylan saying, actually, I agree with Ivan. That's the first time you will hear Dylan say that. But Chris saying, in Malagon we trust. And yes, we definitely do. He's been having a stellar season, and I think he will continue to do so come tomorrow. But yeah,
I think the that game's on FS1 too, right?
Yeah, game is on Fox Sports 1. So for anyone that wants to watch it in English, you guys can catch that.
Yeah.
They don't really have, and actually you can watch it online in English too, right? Through like the CONCACAF YouTube channel or something like that.
I think that could be a possibility. At least early in the cup, you can.
That's cool.
Yeah, so interesting. If you guys need another way of watching this game, well, there you guys go. So, all right, gentlemen, do or die. We'll see what happens come Tuesday night after the game, and I guess we'll definitely all be talking throughout the game. That's for sure. So I'm sure you guys are ready for Mike Quinones' rants, but we'll see what happens. But all right. Well, I feel confident that we did a good job here, and hopefully I'm going to continue to do an even better job away at Hidalgo. Erase all those ghosts of the past and start on a clean slate, and hopefully the path to that 8th is just that much more clear. But all right, gentlemen, anything else you guys want to add on before we wrap it up here?
Our prediction last week was right about Columbus and Monterrey.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I remember that.
We did say Columbus is going to win.
All right. Well, let's see if they can continue to do so.
Bold statement. I think they are going to get the job done. They're going to be in the final. That's going to be our opponent in the final.
Well, I'll tell you what. I
Love
definitely want another go at them from that terrible game we had in that League Cup.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That would actually be cool. That'd actually be cool.
It'd be really fun. So hopefully they get the job done and we get the job done and we have a really, really good final on our hands. A true Liga MX MLS final, you know?
Yeah.
Both champions pitting themselves against each other, you know? It's exactly what this region needs. Kevin Perez saying, come on, lads. Come on, indeed. But all right, that does it for us today. We'll be back next week to talk all things Club America in English. Like I mentioned, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at Eagle Eye Podcast. We'll keep you guys up to date with everything minute by minute as the action unfolds in the Estadio Azteca. At Estadio Hidalgo. And hopefully we get to see a final at the Estadio Azteca. So we'll see what happens on that end. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for making the time and coming out. Christian, Brian, again, as always, it's a pleasure to talk America with you guys. All right, then. Well, with that said, you guys have a wonderful time. Take care. And as always, Arriba la América. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was another production of the Eagle Eye Podcast, the #1 source for all things Club America in English. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Eagle Eye Podcast and get all the latest news and coverage. And subscribe to our podcast wherever it is you may listen.